Sorry, I didn't see you come in. In this episode, Andre and I talk about comments, the ones we've received on our shorts from our most recent episode. A lot of people weren't happy with some of the opinions we have, so we talk about that. We also spend some time talking about the role that politics plays in everything that we're seeing in America today. We really appreciate you checking out this video, and we hope you stick around to the end. Thanks.
We like to engage with people that leave comments, and I've noticed something that just kind of, it doesn't bother me, but it kind of bothers me, right? And it's not just our comments, it's comments and other things I've been reading on the internet. And I just I feel with us, we get the most comments on YouTube Shorts, where something is 120% taken out of context most of the time. And one would think comments were to start a dialogue, but it's always like a one-sided conversation. Like I'm going to say this, but before I say, thank you for responding to most of the comments. But
you're saying that to me. I thought you were like thanking the audience, like thank you for all the comments. You're like, no, thank you, Chris, for handling all that shit. And I'm just like, whatever.
Because sometimes I feel like I'm dumbing myself down to respond to comments. It's like people intentionally are trolling you to see if you're going to flinch.
Yep.
And I just don't have that type of energy. I just really don't.
It depends. Like there are some comments that I don't bother with. There was one person recently that said something about, well, this is the stupidest opinion I've ever heard. And I responded with, well, obviously you haven't watched any of our other YouTube shorts.
Obviously you're not a golfer.
Because I'm sure we got some stupid ass opinions out there somewhere.
And I think that a lot of times you can disagree. It doesn't mean that the person's opinion is invalid. It's just like you just don't see something the same way. But people shoot off real quick behind a keyboard. I think it's adorable.
I don't know that I would describe it as adorable, but
I think it's childish. One, I'm being kind, because some of the comments are like, "Yo, what?" Like this is the dumbest opinion ever, but why? Like, what about it is dumb?
Right.
And then the ones.
Go ahead.
Then the ones that are just talking points, and I almost just want to say, "Gee, I've heard that talking point time and time again. Thanks for playing." You're missing the point. So, and I also don't think everybody should agree with us, but if you disagree, at what part do you disagree? Can you articulate that?
I think it's a lot like your position on home ownership. Not everybody needs to comment.
Yeah.
Like I think okay, so I guess the way that I look at it, there was a time when I was younger where every little thing that I saw that I didn't agree with, I felt like I got to chime in. This is wrong. I got to correct this. Right? As I grew older, I learned that's not very productive, especially on the internet, because nobody gives a shit what you think. You're not going to change anybody's opinion on the internet who wasn't already waffling on their opinion in the first place.
To be fair, one of my sons sent me a Joe Rogan interview with Tom Dillon, and we all, you know how I feel about Joe Rogan.
He's the best. Fan. Oh, yeah. Yep. Sorry. No, what you said.
Uno reverse. Yeah. But I've also been honest enough to say that I don't disagree with him on everything. The way he kind of presents stuff it's kind of flaky. And they're talking about economic migration and homeownership in the U.S. Two things that we've talked about, ad nauseum, just kind of like, yeah, we've talked about that. Totally get it. And Tom Dillon, I believe his name is, made a lot of good points that I agree with 97% of it. He talked about how BlackRock and other hedge funds are buying homes and they're forcing people out of the housing market, and the only way to stop that would be for basically for Congress to, and even local municipalities to block that.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to, more than likely. Um,
Why
I
would you?
agree with
They're
that.
paying property taxes.
But yes, but we're like depending on which chart you look at, we're 10 to 15 years low in inventory for the amount of
Right.
population we have. We don't have the tradesmen to even put a dent in that, the need that we actually have. So that should be a sign for politicians to wake up, right? If I responded, well, granted, it's my son that sent me this information, but if I want to foster a relationship with anybody, that and I can at least listen to what's informing them to make the decision or to believe. You got people always say, do your research. Well, sometimes doing your research means listening to opinions you don't agree with. And
Yeah.
sometimes you'll find that between the disagreement, there are a lot of things that are probably commonalities that you can agree on. So,
Isn't that kind of like the definition of at least doing proper research? I mean, real research
Sure.
isn't just finding confirmation bias material, right?
Exactly.
It's okay. I found this. What's the other side? And it's not that you necessarily like you go into you say, okay, it's this. You know, it's not the but two sides to every story kind of thing where it's like, well, we have to weigh these equally and decide did the Holocaust happen or did it not? Like, no, that's not the point. But just to simply say, okay, what is the opposite kind of position on this? At least when those types of positions exist.
Yeah, and you can disagree with a whole person all you want, but
I do regularly. His name is Donald
but
Trump.
there are exceptions to the rule. But I'm willing to bet money more times and more often than not, you're going to agree with people on most of the things. If you have 20 things on the table, you'll agree on 15. 5 are things that you have to figure out. How do you, claw back?
Yeah.
It's just so I find the comments it's just funny how people it, it, people just get really bold on the internet. It's just amazing to me.
I mean, this certainly isn't the first time that we've had stuff like this happen, right? I mean, we've had the comments about your Spider-Man mug, my ability to derail conversations with my non sequiturs, just all sorts of fun opinions in general.
I think it's hilarious, and it does it's funny to a point, but what concerns me is that it's the norm. That's the part that I always get stuck on.
It is, yeah.
It's not just things that we, like I dread when you put a short out there. I know it's coming. There's going to be nothing but people. Like for the most part, not everybody was hateful, and I know that's the norm on the internet. But
Yep.
Maybe we're not smart enough for the internet.
Maybe
there was this company Beeper, and why it's the same problem. So the blue bubble, green bubble thing is, I guess, a thing that younger people really care about. Beeper, there's Sunbird messaging and another one I don't remember. And there's a couple open source projects. Well, what the start of this project was relaying messages from iMessage to Android so that you wouldn't have the loss of quality in media like video and pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily so much the green bubble, right? The chats were being broken because Billy's picture is going to get compressed like to the max of MMS. SMS can't handle reactions, and et cetera, et cetera. So the relay game was actually pretty cool. Well, Beeper, a 16-year-old kid, who's I would probably say much smarter than I am, figured out he reverse engineer iMessage and remove the need for a relay server to do all the transmission and receiving on the device.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. It was going to cost $2 a month, and people were ecstatic. So, like, and it is a U.S. problem because most people here don't use WhatsApp or WeChat or Signal. Most people with an iPhone don't. They do not want to change whatever the default is because it just works. I applaud you for that. I don't mind that. Well, somehow in our society, like not having a iPhone meant that you were poor. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. And so this stigma is attached to like being less than. I actually saw a video of a guy asking a girl on a date. She's like, "Yeah, let me give you my number." She gets up from the table and says, "You have an Android. I can't do this." I was like, "What? That's what we're doing." I have the Pixel Pro 8. I love it. My last phone was a Pixel. I bought the LG G series, so they stopped making them. I don't like the iPhone, but we have a chat group, and I have a Blue Bubble. Right? You've noticed that, right?
Oh yeah.
I run a relay server with some open source software called Blue Bubbles. It's great. It's not very difficult. Do I really care at the end of the day? No, but it actually became something. I wonder if I could just get this running and just kind of judge the effectiveness and blah, blah. It was really more of a can I do it thing. It wasn't that I really gave a crap about what color my bubbles were, but nor did I ever think about like video quality because I don't do that stuff. I just like, hey, I'll meet you in 15 or whatever, and I'm done. So I say all that to say this: they launch this, they get a bunch of hype from YouTubers, and they go from 0 MRR or ARR to $1 million in like a couple days. Like it just blew up. The potential was to make $1 million basically in like a year from 0 to $1 million, which is impressive. Apple gets wind of this and they start playing whack-a-mole. It worked for about a week or so, and Apple basically closed the path that the Beeper Mini team found to do all this on device and to have these, seamless integrated conversations. And then I went to Reddit, and I shouldn't have done that. Because oh my God. Even every article from The Verge, every article from 9 to 5 Google to Reddit, most of them were the conversations were starting on Reddit. People were just horrendous to each other. And it just got me thinking, like, would you say this to somebody's face? I think 9 times out of 10, most people wouldn't say it unless they're just like wanting to get into a physical altercation.
Which most people are not want to do.
Right? It just blows my mind of the bravery you have behind a keyboard.
It's, in my opinion, it's like the same bravery that a lot of people have in their car, right? You put that thin piece of glass and a big hunk of metal around somebody, and they will cuss and scream and, wave and all this shit frantically. Where, like you're saying, would you ever actually do that? Like if you were just face to face with somebody on the sidewalk where that person could potentially punch you in the face? Right. No, probably not, unless you're trying to get punched in the face.
Yeah, unless you're like, I'm about to catch this charge right now. Nobody does this stuff in real life. Like it's just people think the internet is real life at 100%. There are consequences. So at some degree, the internet is real life, but it's not immediate response real life.
But do you think that people actually think that the internet is real life, or do you think that the problem is that they don't think that the internet is real life? I almost think the problem is the opposite, where it's like they don't see these, like this other profile as an actual person on the other end. It's just a name on a screen that I can scream at. And then when you throw in like the potential for bots and all this other stuff, especially on Reddit, Like
Right.
I think it's one of those things where part of the issue is that people look at it as it's almost like a game. It's like Grand Theft Auto, where it's like, oh, I can just do whatever I want, because ultimately there are no real repercussions. Like, this person's not going to come find me at my house and assault me, or, like, what's the worst they're going to do? They're going to complain to a mod, right? And most of those mods aren't going to side with the person getting assaulted in the chat anyway. So
I mean, I used to see this a lot on. I still go to Stack Overflow because.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't know everything, and there are people.
But sometimes it was such a toxic place where like you get people asking basic questions. It's like learn how to search and all this other stuff.
RTFM.
Like, yeah.
Now I'll tell you this: when I was a younger developer, I didn't know the value of reading the manual. Like in other programs, I would just read the manual, and that's how I learned software. But as a developer, I was kind of intimidated by it. But as I got more comfortable with it, I mean, I just kind of didn't have to ask questions anymore, or I ask less questions. So, reading the manual is not a bad thing. Like, for example, I'm working on this one project, and I was looking for a resource. I'm not shamelessly plugging this guy, but I was like, hey, I need to have a reference at my desk for things that that I'm going to probably encounter. So I have a whole bookshelf of books, and yeah, read the fucking manual. Sometimes it's not that hard.
God, can you imagine if someone took like the important parts of that book and condensed it down into, like, I don't know, a 6-page card that you could refer to,
like a reference card?
Yeah, I guess.
Would you call
I
it
guess
a
you would
reference
call
card?
it that.
How can you brand that?
I'd probably give it some sort of stupid name with like an X on the end.
Oh, area. And can we get sponsors for it and charge them $20,000 to have their logo on it?
Yeah.
And have them write
that
it?
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, but then won't it just turn out to be a plug for their product if we do that?
No. Nobody will care.
You don't think any company would do that, right? They wouldn't write a reference card that was just a plug for their product.
And like probably 2 or 3 chapters from their manual.
Their book.
Oh, area, we're talking about you.
Sorry for the 2-minute inside joke there, everybody. But
yeah, we used to. If you're listening and you ever want to hear about or see a story of why tech companies go bad, look up area. You'll figure it out. We've changed the names to protect the innocent.
Except for Frank. Fuck you, Frank.
Frank gets no quarter.
Hell no.
Jeez.
Anyway, but yeah, Stack Overflow
it's not a, well, it's, devs are mean. And maybe it's because a lot of them are socially inept. I don't know.
But do you, like, again, do you think that the issue is really like the developers themselves, or is it that they spend so much time at a computer that, again, like these interactions, they don't view these people as like real other people in this way?
I
know we can't like look inside people's minds, so we don't know if that's what they're doing.
Well, there's a couple of development communities I'm a part of, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say they know the interactions are real. They know the people are real. I think it's just a matter. There are times I actually want to say, read the fucking manual. There are really times where I'm like, dude,
But you
but
don't.
I don't. I just don't respond to them.
Right. Okay. So yeah, like that.
I think
is
part of the problem, right? Because
Are you though? I think you just touched on the solution, my friend.
really,
You can have those initial thoughts, but it's not typing in RTFM and hitting enter. Like, that's the thing. Because you can have those thoughts all day long and nobody knows about it but you. Right?
yeah.
But the moment you type that in and hit enter, now you're inflicting that onto somebody else.
But I think by me not responding, even with like pointing the person to the right direction, is equally as bad, right?
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, I think okay, maybe this is a weird example, but
I know the intimidation of like there's some times where you'll get stuck, and it's happening even now. I'm racking my brain trying to figure out why I can't get my code to compile again.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I did something stupid, and I'm not even looking at my debugger. Because
and you didn't call me.
Yeah, I did it. I'm so zoned in, and I'm like, and I'll be like, yo, Dre, come on, man. What the? Why didn't you stop and just step through this code to see where it broke? It's because sometimes you get so zoned in and you just you tune everything out. I often tell my wife, like, yo, when I'm in the zone, I need you to leave me alone. It's like I'm hitting 3 points, like it's nothing. And I just need to take advantage of, I don't want to say that that's the matrix, but it's like sometimes when I'm writing code, I feel like I'm just zoned in and nothing I type is wrong and it's just clicking. And I think that especially when I first started doing this, you kind of forget that you can stop and kind of pause and look and see why this isn't working. So I think it would have been helpful for me to this is on page 356 of the manual. B, don't forget to use your debugger. There's so many things I would tell younger developer Andre.
Yeah.
That still that would have been helpful.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. And
still disagree.
No. I think you're right. Could you have been more helpful? Yes. But you still did no harm. Right?
Inaction is harm, Chris.
In this case, okay, maybe in general, yes, but in this case, I disagree. I still think it is okay. If the choice, if we make it a binary choice between shitting on somebody, basically by typing RTFM, or saying nothing, right?
Right.
If those were your only two options, you chose the better option, right? I understand there is a third better option. And yeah, man, what the fuck? Get off your high horse and help this person.
Right.
But
I know. You know me.
but steps, right? I'm just saying that ultimately, if more people did what you did just to begin with, right? I think the internet would be a better place.
I don't think we're smart enough for the internet.
Oh, fuck no, we're not.
I really don't. I'm actually looking forward to the day when people just have Chromebooks.
So last weekend we went to the Children's Museum here was having this special event where they were showing kids celebration of different winter holidays all around the world. And so we took the girls, and when we were driving up there, I had put my phone between my legs and when I was at a stoplight or something like that, and then drove, and I left it there in the car when we went in. We were there for 2.5 hours, and I realized it shortly after we went in, but we had split up, and I didn't want to drag one kid out, and so I was just like, you know what, it's whatever, I won't get any pictures, but that's cool. It was one of the nicest times and it wasn't like I was super enthralled. Like, I mean, the last 20 minutes, I was just standing against a wall while my kid played in like the doctor's area with a bunch of other kids. But, you know,
You weren't distracted?
I wasn't distracted. I wasn't just like, oh, I'm so bored. I'm on my phone doing all, like, I don't know. It was kind of nice. And so, yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe we'll realize that we've kind of, but see, I don't think.
Here's my thought on that. Like, I'm okay with, like, my computer's in my office, my main computer's in my office, my main monitor's in my office, my laptop stays in my room, right? Very rarely, unless I'm writing something and I'm like and I hate writing. So if I'm writing, I got to get it done. It's like eating my vegetables, and I use it to travel. I'm very disconnected. There are times you text me and I'm just like 3 hours later responding because I don't need my phone. My wife is like always on social media. She's always doing stuff. Now there are times, well, when we go to bed, we're with each other, right? But for the most part, it's like she's checking Facebook to see what her family's doing because they're in Peru, they're in Spain, they're in other places. I get that.
Yeah.
I just don't need the distraction. Like, I'm very narrowly focused on like not being distracted when I'm doing stuff. I just want to say thank you for all the people that subscribe and listen to the Chris and Andre Show. We're very glad and grateful that you listen and you've subscribed. We're going to get on a regular cadence. Please go to the Chris and Andre Show, or chrisandandreshow.com. Subscribe to our audio podcast. We are on fireside.fm, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, obviously. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, you can probably find the audio version. And yeah, we really appreciate it. I'm very grateful and humbled, to be honest with you, that people actually enjoy the podcast. And if you like what you hear, hit the like button, leave comments. If you have suggestions, always just let us know. We'll be glad to answer that. We do involve and engage in the comments, even the weird ones. So yeah. Chris is just standing there stoic.
I don't know what you just were like, I'm going to do this thing and didn't tell me what you were going to say. So yeah, what he said.